Hello, students. I welcome you to the third interfaculty lecture series project. Today, Shilpa Gupta will present on the play, Mahesh Dattani's play Tara, and this is going to be a reading from the disability studies. Last year, English department held a conference, national conference on disability studies, and teachers here are exploring this area, and Shilpa is seriously into this field and is looking at the text from this perspective. She will inform us more about this field, and then we'll talk about this play. As we are all aware that Shilpa teaches English in our department and is an assistant professor. She has been student of Delhi University in her graduation, post-graduation MPhil, and I have spent several years with her as my colleague in English department. She has participated in national and international conferences. She is very much active in the corporate life of college, taking care of several activities, NSS, literacy area, and other fields. I welcome Shilpa, and to add to this whole project, I would say that last two meetings have been very fruitful, as I get feedback from students about they write reports on what was presented and how things were put before them. So the this play, is a play, of course, and a stage thing where body, voice, light, costume, set design, all these things matter. And that's what Mahesh Dattani says, well, it is for performance. It's a stage play. But as we are part of the English department, and there we study texts for critical reviews, for thematic issues, and for our purpose, understanding the characters, the nation, idea of language, culture, society, relationships, and our historical, mythical, as well as, you see, belief systems that we are surrounded with. The play Tara offers a great opportunity of exploring all these areas. And I have been doing one project on characters, and students are aware of it. Once I also talk with you about this project, and in that we have been talking about how characters have their shadows, and they wear masks, and it's very, very difficult to understand them. And for that, we have critical approaches. We use psychoanalysis to get into the psyche of these characters. We have historical materialism. We have cultural materialism to get into the socio-economic and historical factors that frame or shape the characters. And at the same time, we have gender studies, feminist studies, then disability studies. And here today we have Shilpa, one among us and a dear colleague who will give her presentation. Shilpa, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such an illustrious introduction. All right, so students, of course, know me because I've been interacting with them on some other uh, topics, some other texts, right? So, of course, right? So, let me just kind of start with the text, right, that I'm here to talk about, right? So, Tara by Mahesh Tatani, right? Mahesh Tatani, of course, doesn't need any kind of an introduction, right? The way he kind of brings this new energy to Indian English theatre, right? And he then, of course, he says, my plays are meant to be performed rather than to be read. But of course, as you rightly said, we are students of literature, and of course, we try to look at even drama through various lenses. Right. So, students, today, right, so the intent, the objective behind this lecture is, of course, to engage with this text through the lens of disability studies, right? So I'll just, I'll be making some kind of a movement between the text and some kind of a conceptual and theoretical understanding of disability as such and disability studies as well. And then, of course, I'll be picking up some sections from the text, right? So let me see, how much can I cover, right? Okay. So a lot of critical analysis, right? I've been reading on Tara over the past few days, right? A lot of critical analysis on Tara basically deals with the gender-based discrimination, right? Uh, Given the fact that there are two conjoined twins, right, and they have to be separated through a surgery, and how a male child is given this one limb which should have actually gone to the female child, right? So prioritizing of a male child over the female one, and then of course patriarchy, deeply embedded patriarchy. Whether you look at the relationship between the husband and wife, Mr. Patel and Mrs. Patel, the kind of influence that Bharati Patel's father had on this entire decision of giving one limb to Chandan, right? And so on and so forth, right? The kind, for instance, Patel wants Chandan to pursue his education, right? Go to a college in a foreign university, but of course, he doesn't seem to have the same kind of plans for his female child, right? Which is, of course, Tara, right? So then another perspective, that is, how the two twins can be seen as a whole, and then of course the male self and the female self, and how they are separated, and how the masculine self is prioritized over the feminine self, which again talks about the ideological premises, right, that we find in the society, right? Again, gender constructs, social ideology, right? So all these things. But of course, I'm going to take you slightly away from all these analysis, right? And I'm going to talk about disability. So I'm going to begin with a quote from the text, and for me, it formed the crux of the text, right? So this is basically the revelation of the truth, right? That finally, Patel tells his two children, right? Something that Bharti initially wanted to tell, and he says, no, if at all it has to come, it has to come from me. I'll tell them the truth, right? Again, there are questions with respect to this part of the truth also, because for me, Bharti's silence becomes problematic given the fact that Bharti is not given, when she wants to disclose the truth, right? Her husband doesn't let her do that. And finally, when the truth is revealed to the children, right, to Chandan and Tara, she is not around, right? And nor do we get to see any response from her, right? So again, so that for me becomes problematic. How much, the version of the truth, right? The fact that Bharti was responsible, and the way father tries to project, right? That she went with her father to meet the doctor, and I could have probably protested, and claiming himself to be an innocent party in this. How much can that be trusted is something which of course I have problems with, right? Because Dattani, of course, doesn't give a voice to Bharati over there. Fine. So I'll just read this quote, right? A scan showed that a major part of blood supply to the third leg was provided by the girl. Your mother asked for a reconfirmation. The result was the same. The chances were better that the leg would survive on the girl. Then your mother and grandfather had a private meeting with Dr. Thakur. I was not asked to come. That same evening, your mother told me about the decision that everything will be done as planned, except I couldn't believe it, what she told me, that they would risk giving both legs to the boy. Maybe I had protested more strongly, right? So, of course, two conjoined twins and they have three legs, and uh, the leg, there were better chances of the leg surviving on the girl, but of course, it is given to the male child, right? So, that forms the crux of the argument. Again, gendered, if you look at it through the lens of gender studies, male child being prioritized, right? But again, it also induces disability, right? So had the leg survive, had the leg this giving of leg to Chandan, been successful, then what would have happened? It would have been only Tara who would have been leading a disabled life of a person with disability, right? However, because this doesn't really work out, and 2 days later the leg has to be amputated because of the natural rejection from the body, right? So as a result, both Chandan and Tara, they are living the lives of persons with disability. They have a prosthetic leg, right? But you need to understand the intent behind this decision, right? A denial to what was the natural right of Tara, right? To that one limb that was wasted away, right? Because one doesn't want this, if at all disability has to happen, it may happen to the girl child, but not to the male child. Why? Again, male child is seen as an heir to the family. He's the one who's going to take care of the family, the parents. He's going to take the name forward, the clan forward, right? And then, of course, all kinds of misconceptions, taboos, and stereotypes, negative stereotypes that are associated with disability, right? So that is one of the reasons, right, why this unethical decision is taken by Bharti, and of course her father, right, who happens to be a rich and an influential man, and of course the doctor, for his vested interest, agrees to that, right? So so one is, of course, something which is very clear here is fear of disability, okay? And then one doesn't want this disability to occur, of course, to the male child, uh, because of the gender dynamics, right? Because of the fear associated to it, and because you give more importance to a male child in the society, right, in the social and cultural framework, right? Right. So negative stereotypes, taboos, and misconceptions about disability, right, they become the reason for this kind of an unethical decision, right? Okay. Now, now disability is thought to be a life sentence, in the sense, and the fact that a person with disability will be unhappy for the rest of his life, right? Probably won't get education, won't get married, won't get social acceptance, won't be able to live his or her life independently, right? So many uh, stereotypes, so many misconceptions that are associated with disability. Then having a disabled child in the family again is something which is seen, which is feared, which is not seen, which is not rejoiced, right? Why? Again, because a disabled child is seen as a liability, right? And male child is seen as an asset, right? Okay. So what happens, right? So female child is already seen as a liability. A girl, she has to be married off, dowry is to be given, right? She'll go to someone else's house. So she's already a liability. So let her be a double liability, right? So even if she's a disabled liability, it's all right, right? So that kind of a mindset, that is something that we are looking at. And then of course, another thing is stigma. I'll come to the notion of shame and stigma in a little while. But then, of course, our disability also becomes a very cause for shame and stigma, not only for the person with disability, but also for the family members, right? The parents, right? There are ample number of such examples, where the parents, they don't really come out in open, right? They won't really reveal it to the society that they have a disabled child, right? Or the way the society reacts to these such families, right, where there is a disabled child, right? So the notion of stigma and shame, that is also very, very, intrinsically associated to disability, right? Now I have some then how come, you disability, why does it become so problematic? Because we are living in an ableist society, right? Okay, so ableism is so insidious in a society that it establishes the superiority of able-bodied people and able-minded people over those who fall short of definition of what is deemed as normal, right? So what is normal, right? So anyone who falls short of this definition as to what is normal is considered as a disabled person. So people having physical development, neurological, psychiatric, sensory impairments are labeled as disabled and subjected to marginalization and discrimination, right? Although this kind of discrimination is not justifiable, right? You is neither valid nor justifiable. Yet persons with disabilities, they experience both systemic and interpersonal ableism. So I'll try to decode these terms for you, and which of course, results in experiencing, right? So it devaluation and of course lack of access to equal opportunities. What is systemic ableism? Just imagine, a person on a wheelchair wants to access a building without ramps, right? Without a lift, right? So if a person on wheelchair wants to go to the first or the second floor of the building, right? How would that person go to that floor, right? This is systemic ableism, right? The way the systems, right, infrastructure or even the systems for that matter are created around us, keeping only the able-bodied people in mind, right? And they're not designed in such a manner, designed to accommodate the needs of persons with disability, right? Then of course we talk about interpersonal ableism, which I think is even more dangerous, right? Is even more harmful, right? Because that kind of hampers, that affects the psychology, right? That leads to a kind of a psychological trauma, right, in a person with disability, right? So interpersonal ableism is the kind of language, right? Not just language, but also body language, right? Verbal language as well as the body language that we use, okay, towards establishing an interpersonal communication with a person with disability, right? So verbal and non-verbal communication, right? And there are so many examples, right? And this text also brings forth such examples, right? So if I could quote just a few here quickly, right? So for instance, this is when Tara has gone out. She is coming, she's returning home, and she meets Rupa, Nalini and Prema outside her house, and how they are, looking at her. And then when she comes, when she enters the house, she tells Chandan, right, how they wanted to look at her prosthetic limb, right? And the way they are talking behind her back, and then of course Rupa, calling them one-legged person, uh, okay, freaks, quote unquote, right? Use of this word, ample number of times in the text, right? So several such ways in which, of course, even interpersonal ableism is exercised towards persons with disabilities, right? Right. So we need to understand what is disability, not just definition, but and not just strictly in terms of definition, but also, how it functions, how it exists, how it operates within the society, right? So disability is usually seen as an absolute category, right? One is either disabled or one is not a disabled person, right? On the basis of the definition, right? So if you don't fit into the definition of normal, you are a disabled person. But again, I find it very interesting, right? The way the text tries to challenge these ideas, right? So if you remember, there is a section where there is a reference. This is towards the end of the play, right? There is a reference to Tara's classmate Deepa, right? So she said, "Oh, she didn't like me, but then of course we were doing a science project, and I had to go to her home to do this science project. And when I sat on her bed, I could feel something different, and I found that there was a rubber sheet underneath her bed sheet, right? So that means that even at the age of 13, she indulges in bedwetting, right? Now that is something which is also not normal, right? Yet this is something that Deepa can hide from everyone, right? And therefore she will not experience interpersonal ableism or systemic ableism, or the kind of remarks that Tara and Chandan receive, right? Because theirs is something, it is something, it is a visible disability, right? Okay, it is a certified disability, medically speaking, it's a certified disability, right? But for Deepa it is not, right? And then of course then of course afterwards, because Tara does not reveal this secret of Deepa to the other classmates, right? How they become friends, and Deepa starts doing all kinds of things for Tara, right? So again, it's an absolute category, right? And very, rigid in the sense, and we really just forget that each one of us in some or the other way experiences disability. COVID times, pandemic times, lockdowns, have made it, evident, right? People, if disability is about not being able to do something, right, perform, right? So if I can't cook, and I don't have someone else to cook for me, I'm also a disabled person with disability as far as cooking is concerned, right? So we need to have these kind of broader definitions, and how the play also brings in this perspective through this very interesting example of Deepa, right? Now, now these kind of rigid definitions, absolute definitions that we have about disability, what do they do? They, of course, have ways to control, yield power, or to instill fear. Again, it is this fear only that makes Bharati and her father make this decision wherein this one leg is given to Chandan, okay, taken away from Tara and given to Chandan, because you don't want disability. Male child is considered as an asset. Disability is a liability, right? So fear with regards to disability, right? Yield power, right? How, they are, people with disability, they're often considered as incapable, not, so how they have to be taken care of by anyone, or caretakers, right? So even, when the play opens, right? So Bharti, of course, the way she tries to take care of Tara in particular, right? Uh, of course, there is an element of guilt also, right? If associated to that, but then again, she should have more milk. She should, right? She's trying to take decisions for her, right? She's trying to kind of then the way she tries to find a friend for her, Rupa, right? You should come here. I'll let you watch films, right? I'll give you this and that. And Rupa later on discloses that I used to come here because your mother used to give me XYZ things, right? So again, how, someone, so yielding power, how one is considered as a dependent, so someone else happens to have more power in this asymmetrical relationship, right? Or have control, right, over a person with disability, right? So how they are connected, right? I'll just move ahead, right? What is the response, right? The average normal, so-called normal individual feels sorry for such an individual, had troubles relating to such an individual, right? Troubles relating because we don't really know what are the experiences of persons with disability, right? Rupa, for instance, in the play, right? Though we never get to see Prema and Nalini in person, but of course, again, right? They represent the society, right? And how they have troubles in relating to the experiences of Chandan and Tara, right? Again, towards the end of the play, right, when Rupa, of course, calls out, calls them one-legged creatures, and then of course Tara takes it, Tara of course comes up with a counter attack, right? And she says, of course, then she says, it's always nice to have something in your hand which can hurt the other person also, right? So how to take the revenge, right? So again, so okay, so the average, just a second. So has trouble relating, right? So Rupa cannot really relate with the psychological, emotional experiences, stresses, traumas, turmoil, right? That these two individuals, right, Chandan and Tara, have because of their visible disability, right? And the way Tara moves into, Tara gives it back to Rupa, right? So Rupa becomes so very conscious and she wants to go, and right, she doesn't want to meet them ever again, right? So we don't really relate to the experiences of such people, right? I'll just move ahead. I'll skip this. Okay, so of course, question worth looking at is how language, art, literature, and culture have shaped and semantic this understanding of disability. Right? This is a question that I want all of you to think about. Right? Language. We use such words like freaks, crazy, pagal ho kya. It's a lame excuse. दिखाई नहीं देता क्या? Right? अंधे हो क्या? I mean, these are, and without really realizing how heavily loaded these terms could be, we could probably think of some other words, right? We could, these such words could be exchanged with something which is more empathetic, something, okay? So language, okay, art, literature, and culture. Just think about your, again, Dattani's Tara happens to be one such play which talks about disability to a certain extent. How many portrayals do you find of disability, whether in art, literature, or cinema, right? And of course, all these things, whether it's art, literature, or cinema, they stem from society, culture, right? So, how many representations do you have? And then, of course, there can be, a full-length session on that, in its entirety, right? And even there, we have there are very few portrayals, right? And then, of course, even there, there are uh, representations that are very, very problematic, right? So just to give you once again just a further understanding of disability, few facts, right? This is with certified data from WHO. 1 billion people globally suffer disability. Census 2011 in India says that 2.68 crore people are persons with disability, which is almost about 2.21%, right? And then, of course, uh, 45% of disabled people in India, which is 1.46 crore, are illiterate, which is 20% more than the national average. Only 9% of them go on to complete a secondary education or higher education. Only one third of all disabled persons find employment. And then, of course, one more statistics show that more than 41% uh, uh, persons with disabilities never get married, and even there, more than 41% never get married, so lack of acceptance. And even within that, women with disabilities, there is a higher percentage of women with disabilities not getting married as compared to men with disabilities, right? So, education, employment, marriage, acceptance in the family, they'll just tell you, and then again, I'm going to connect it to the quote that I read, right? Why that decision was taken, right? Because disability is something to be feared, right? And then, of course, you want an able-bodied male child, right? There's so much of an emphasis, and if you look at it later on, right, when Patel, of course, wants Chandan to pursue his studies, right, and Bharti asks, "What about Tara?" Right? So he doesn't, the father doesn't really have plans for Tara to pursue her education, right? To maybe have her own career, right? And then, of course, there's this another section, right, where Bharti is talking to Chandan, right? And she says, I'm really worried for her, right? It's okay for her, today, right, at the age of 16 or maybe 18 and 20, right? Because she passes these witty comments, witty remarks, and all that. But life will take its toll on her when she reaches 30 or even 40 and 50, right? Because what she can see is, of course, lack of acceptance. She says people will accept you, but not her, right? Acceptance to a certain degree is there for a male with disability, but of course, to a much lower degree for a female with disability, right? What are the reasons for that? Again, a woman, she's supposed to perform certain roles. Everyone, even a man, is supposed to perform certain roles, right? Living in the society, right? That of a wife, mother, caregiver, right? And it is considered that as a woman with disability, she'll not be able to fulfill those roles, right? So, right? Okay, so I'm just giving you a quote from Leonard J. Davis. The disability it is from the Disability Studies Reader 2006, right? And he says for centuries, people with disabilities have been an oppressed and repressed group. They have been isolated, incarcerated, observed, written about, operated on, instructed, implanted, regulated, treated, institutionalized, and controlled to a degree probably unequal to that experienced by any other minority group, right? That is how they have been, considered in the society, a marginalized group, a discriminated. And this discrimination becomes double fold when it happens to be a woman with a disability, right? And something that we are trying to decode with respect to Tara, right? Okay, so I'll skip some of these things, right? Okay, so again, if you look at in the Indian context, right, mythological references, right? You have characters, right? So they are to be feared, right? Disabilities to be feared. You have negative portrayals of persons with disabilities, even in, for instance, in characters. You have read Mahabharata, for instance. Shakuni, okay, or Dhritarashtra, right? Okay, Manthara in Ramayana, right? So I'll not talk about that. Then I'll quickly introduce you to the models, and then of course I'll move on. One is morality model. That okay, then again you are disabled because you might have committed some kind of a sin in your previous karma, and that is why you are reaping the consequences of that, right? Charity model again. You would have seen, several places when we happen to go outside the temples and all that. People tend to give more charity to a person with disability rather than an able-bodied person, right? Because that is seen, oh, hum koi punya kar rahe hain, right? That is what the charity model suggests, right? Personal tragedy, again, this is something that you can probably connect to Tara again. This is seen as a problem, right? Disability is seen as a problem of that individual. It's a personal tragedy to that person, right? And people around that person, the society doesn't really relate with that person, right? So again, so Tara, the play, it talks about these conjoined twins. It's their problem, it's their tragedy, right? Chandan, of course, says, Tara, tragedy, right? This is my tragedy, making your tragedy mine, right? So again, this is their tragedy, this is their problem, this is something that they are experiencing, and they're forced to deal with that, right? Then the medical model, of course, again, when one can connect that also to the play. Medical model again emphasizes on the body, right? There's a problem in the body, right? So if you can't see, there's a problem in the body. If you don't have a limb, right? First, you have a problem in the body, and that needs to be fixed, right? So if is a cure mechanism available there or not, right? And that is exactly what Bharati and her father try to do, right? When they take this decision, when they decide that this limb, this one leg, which probably, which actually, of course, belongs to Tara and has a greater rate of success being, there, right, is actually given to Chandan, right? So medical model, right? It's a disability, right? Is a medical problem and it needs to be fixed, right? A cure has to be found to overcome the disability, right? So that you become a normal person, right? So-called normal person, so-called able-bodied person. Then, of course, after that came the social model, wherein, of course, one started looking at the kind of constraints that the society puts on. I gave you an example of systemic ableism, so wherein I want to access a building, and if I'm a wheelchair bound person, if the building doesn't have ramps or lift, right, it's not my problem. It's because of the lack of awareness, the lack of sensitivity in the society, which hasn't provided for these kind of accommodations, right? So that is the social model, right? But then now in the 21st century, we talk about the human rights model. I thought I'll quickly kind of familiarize you to these models, that will just help you in understanding the way disability studies has gone ahead, right, with respect to understanding disability and claiming the rights of persons with disability, right? So human rights model again. So what happens? Social model, takes the emphasis away from the person concerned. So you are just looking at the surroundings, right? But human rights model has the focus on the individual as well, right? This is my right to access this building, as any other person can access this building, right? So both an individual is to be and the infrastructure both are to be taken in consideration, and that is what the human rights model suggests, and we can go on with several such examples, right? So human rights model suggests that you don't reject either the medical or the social one, but of course we are moving towards a more inclusive model of understanding and defining disability, right? uh, Nasimi Linton questions the idea of disability is an objective, organic, and medical problem to be fixed. She argues that disability is both a social and cultural phenomenon. It's the result of how we think and talk about bodies, minds, and people, right? Bodies, minds, and people. That's very important, right? How we talk about bodies. Just look at some of those markers, right? Signifiers in your text where the bodies have been talked about. Bodies of Chandan and Tara, right? Again, towards the end of the play, when Rupa finally walks away and Tara shouts out to her, horrible people, I don't want to, have any kind of thing to do with you. Chandan says, it's not they who are horrible, it's rather we are the ones, ugly people, right? With of course, because we are disabled people, right? So, so minds, bodies, right? So bodies, of course, how body becomes the very premises, right, on which this kind of a discrimination and marginalization happens. And if you look at it, again, I'll refer to the first quote from the text, right? The problem in the body, the intent was to cure the body of the male child by providing him a limb which naturally didn't really belong to him, right? Minds and people, again, again, the psychological development, trauma, the experiencing shame and stigma. I come to that again, right, in a little while. Right? Disabled people are a group only recently entering everyday civic life, a host of factors, right? So again, as said, right, rightly said that this is a recent induction in your course, right? And last year, Tara was introduced to the syllabi, right? Why? Because in the recent years, disability studies has gained momentum, and of course, we are trying to look at the text through the lens of disability studies, right? Because disability has always existed in the society; it has always been around us. It's just that we have kind of tried, we have shied, right, from talking about it, right, discussing it, right. Okay, we have been hidden, whether in the institutions that have confined us, the attics and basements, that shelter our family's shame. Again, yeah? It's not just shame, and stigma is not just experienced by the person with disability, but also by the family. Refer to some of these sections from the play, Rupa. Oh, you don't know how, when she goes and tells Prema and Nalini, what kind of people they are, so she's not just talking about Tara and Chandan, but she's talking about the entire family, Bharti also, right? Okay, and she says, oh, so I'll give you that quote also in a little while, right? So now 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 with now the change that is occurring, of course, with, for instance, Dattani Rights Display in 1990s, right? So first he tries to bring disability to forefront. Similarly, with disability rights movements, disability activism, right? Disability, of course, disability studies and disability activism, they go hand in hand. And of course, and of course, as a result, we are talking about disability.
Yes, Shilpa, you may
Yes, sir.
conclude now. Huh? Yeah.
All right, sir, I'll conclude. Just give me 2 more minutes.
Right.
I'll just then I'll move on to the sections from the text only. Give me a second. Yeah, fine. Okay, so objectification of body we talked about, right? So how persons with disability are considered as either hypersexual or asexual entities. Society has misconceptions and inaccurate assumptions, right? They are considered as asexual or not capable of having sex. They are considered as infertile, not productive. What is going to be what will be their output to the society? The reason, of course, the kind of representation that you find in media and okay, so we have talked about that. Uh, so what happens, as a result, a person with disability tends to internalize these kind of definitions and roles, right? So I'm just quoting from the text. Rupa said that she would not call at her again, lest she should. Okay, I'll skip this. Rupa told Prema and Nalini that she would not go to meet Tara's mother again because she said that Tara was a freak of nature, all right, but wait till you see her mother, right? So I think, mother, of course, experiences nervous breakdown, psychosocial disability, mental illness is yet another kind of disability that the Tani introduces through Bharati. Again, shame, stigma, and then the guilt, right? Guilt of having done something wrong to her own daughter, right? Oh God, I can't tell you, she's really wantage, right? Again, the word from Kannada, right? Uh, right. So then, okay, then of course, how one deals with the shame and stigma. Chandan, of course, doesn't really. We don't see Chandan stepping out of the house, and there's a point when Tara says that you don't go out because you are scared, right? You're afraid of meeting people. Why? Because they'll be looking at how disability becomes an identity marker, right? So again, we are looking at the psychological stress, right? The psychological trauma that as a person with disability one is dealing with. Another section where Tara says, I want to be selfish, right? What have I got from people, right? What should I, I don't want to give care and to back to the society because I haven't really received that. So the bitterness that comes in, right? Her, right? Then of course Rupa accuses Chandan of sexual assault, and then of course she says that he could probably. She says they are incompatible. Of course, she's referring to his disability, and she says you could probably go to this another girl who's mentally retarded again. You know how a person with disability is closeted in one bracket, right? So a non-disabled person is of course not compatible for you. So of course asymmetry in the social relationships that we find. So I'll conclude here, sir. If there are any questions, more or less I've tried to touch all the things, right? So just a last word on shame and stigma, right? Something that a person internalizes from the interaction that one has with the society, with the people around oneself, right? One tends to internalize this shame and stigma, and then of course one is constantly negating with it, right? And I see Bharti also, suffering from psychosocial disability as being subjected to the stigma and shame. As a mother who has brought forth these two children into the world, right, with disabilities, right, responsible for bringing these two persons with disabilities into the world, and then of course the guilt. Okay, something that she did, unethical towards her own daughter. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Shilpa, you have really added um, something very exciting and new and educational, as well as uh, challenging to the behaviors that we have, owing to the language, culture, and kind of upbringing we are all part of. The play was discussed in the broad structure of the paper, Indian Writing in English, and that was about, I mean, the play was, in the earlier interpretations, we included gender, and then I also talked about the caste, and then class aspect,
Right.
and then colonization of the mind, and then post-coloniality, and then modernity versus tradition, and then native imagery, for example, even a girl in the native imagery of a nation and a society. Now, today, you have brought a new perspective that is from disability studies. And you have given us certain terms, certain keywords, which we used to take in a literal manner, but now we understand they have a deeper dimension in the academia. So even the word like able and ableism is a crucial word now. Okay, so we talk of different kind of discriminations, but ableism, or this psychological idea of a body and its relationship with the society and power relationship, particularly how you see my ability is related with someone else's ability, and how I conclude that I am abler than someone is. So this you have brought into our vocabulary, and then you also gave us terms like shame and stigma that come from subject micro-sociology. So there are, macro-sociological issues which we understand, which we can easily find out that this is a social discrimination. But there are subtle social discriminations, or you see at the micro level, at the very, very atomic, electronic, I mean, at the level which are not noticeable or which cannot be quantified. Okay, so stigma is one of that. Shame is one of them. How to really quantify the hormones that are within body because of these emotional shocks and emotional atrocities. So that's a great addition to the vocabulary. And then the word normal, again, you problematized and you deconstructed the whole idea, the whole project of society, which is on the so-called normalcy, and binary of normal and abnormal. So by and large, you have really deconstructed the binary opposites, which do not take into consideration the gray area or the middle area, which is huge and multiple. So a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-meaning seeking interpretations do require new vocabulary, and that you have brought today in this event, in this lecture. And then further you very interestingly differentiated systemic ableism and interpersonal ableism, and then you brought the issue of language and body language into the discourse. And that's also a lot to do with our, generally we say verbal personality development and all these terminologies, but I think personality development is very much part of the project, how you understand the systemic ableism and interpersonal ableism, how you understand the stigma, how you understand the psychosocial disabilities. And so by and large, we have been benefited by your interaction in the sense that we now are able to have new set of words and concepts, and then we can see this play from this perspective. And I add this information here that I have been following the performance of this play in different parts of India as well as the world. By now I have the information and record of 12 performances, and one of which happened 2 years ago in India Habitat Center, where this play was performed and directed on the basis of disability studies. And this aspect was particularly emphasized in the direction. I thank you again. And now the House is open for students to ask questions.
Ma'am, how do you think that we reach this definition of normal? Like, is there any role played by our historical text in this?
Hegemony, I think, is the answer, Raman. Who decides what is normal? Who decides what is standard? Right? This is power. Politics of power. Right? Someone who is in the majority, right? Who is in the power? He decides what is normal. Right? I didn't really quote this because there was no time, but of course, the moment you start seeing persons with disability around you every now and then, right, in the universities, on the roads, right, the definitions of disability, what is normal and what is disability will change, right? So have you ever thought of a person with visual impairment, for instance, riding a bicycle? No. Right? But there is something called tandem cycling, which is done by persons with visual impairment. Right? So those kind of accommodations are to be there. Inclusivity has to be there. And then, of course, these definitions would change. And I think this is nothing but power of politics. Right? That exists everywhere. Whether you try to look at things through the lens of disability or through the lens of casteism, right? Or through the lens of gender studies, whatever, right? It is the power, someone who is in the power who gets to decide the definition. Right, sir?
And what I understand, Shilpa, is that disability is a very broad umbrella term, and exactly. Each one of us faces it at some point of time in our life. I mean, if you look at the lifespan, right from birth to the death, there are times, episodes, for example, of 5-year, 10-year, when we are old, or when we meet accidents, or when we under stress lose our memory or suffer amnesia, or are born in, let's say, low caste and then suffer traumas of, for example, in Mahabharata, Ekalavya is disabled because he learned the archery, and Guru Dronacharya wants him to sacrifice his thumb. Similarly, you see there is one very important character, Astavakra. So Astavakra has 8 curves. That is, his body has been turned into a kind of person who has 8 curves, and these curves occur because he thought originally in the womb, and his father cursed him because he said, well, you are anti-Vedas and your logic is against Shastras, and that too is happening in the womb. Therefore, you should be Astavakra, that you should suffer this kind of disability. So disability has been also used as a curse. And in this case of Tara, as you rightly said, well, the right to, the natural right, and then how so many kinds of agencies and structures participate not only in interpreting the disability, but also to induce disability further. For example, this case of amputation and then donating that leg to her brother, and then participation of Dr. Thakkar, of politics, of coloniality, of post-coloniality, of empire, of land mafia, and of hospitals and the chains of medical technologies and whatnot. So in that sense, you see, this dimension has really added. I mean, we can see that this is also a very important aspect of it. And it is not just in the case of Tara. I mean, so-called able person understands that one is disabled in many ways. It may be, for example, learning disability, or you see when you grow up and grow old, I mean, a lot of things occur to you, and we witness that a pain, heart attack, or psychological issues, or diabetes, or whatnot, as you have referred in your presentation. I'm glad that we had you here as a speaker, and this has really enriched our understanding of the text. Thank you very much. Please.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I think, when I started researching, I really wanted to work on this text, and had you not asked me to do this, that would have probably always been a plan in advance, right? So a lot of reading material that I collected, deals with the other aspects.
Right.
There was not much to do with disability. So initially I was like, what will I do, right? But at the end of the day, I still have like a few more pages to talk about, right? So
right.
Some food for
Yes.
thought for me, and maybe I can develop this into a paper. So thank you.
Yes. True. I mean, that material exists on other area, gender and
Right,
other
right.
things, and for this aspect, really, I mean, you can go ahead to develop a research paper, full research paper on it, and that would be really an addition to the academia where we teach Tara here or in other parts of the world. This text is taught in
Exactly.
several universities
Yes,
abroad in Western world or USA, that way, because this has come up as a major play. I mean, Mahesh Dattani, as a playwright, has been doing all kinds of efforts to bring English into playwriting and staging in the
Right.
post-colonial world, particularly in the 21st century, where he believes that a lot of people, say younger generation people from English medium schools, colleges, and all, they speak English and they write English and they are using English as medium. So can there be the possibility of English stage, English theater? And that too can take up the issues like gender, marginalization, sexuality, disability. So he is a kind of playwright who explores the marginal issues which are not even touched by anyone.
Exactly.
So
This is
so
another
so the
paper.
taboo subjects,
Right, right.
Yeah. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you very much. I thank you again, and I thank all the students for this. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye, sir.
Bye
Bye, ma'am.
bye. Bye bye.